This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, health, tax, professional advice. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. This podcast is not intended to replace professional medical advice. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or the management. This podcast may contain adult themes, so parental discretion is advised. So today's guest is a walking testament to transformation. Miss Silke, speaker, mentor, and musician who turned heartbreak into healing. After losing everything, she hit the road with her rescue dogs and found her voice, literally, in Bulgaria. Her story is raw, real, and radically inspiring. Get ready to be moved. So, Silke, how are you?
I'm very well today. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is totally all mine. So tell our listeners about you and your journey, that they can get they can get the foundation to see the magnitude of the transformation and, the testament that you have.
Yes, sure. So I'm Silke Harvey. I'm a musician and speaker and life transformation coach. And I work with women over 50 mostly because that's women who are very close to my heart because of my own personal story. My story started about 2 years ago now, when within the space of 6 weeks, I lost my health, my mum, my marriage, and my career. So I went from a quite successful businesswoman to really facing nothing, facing the big void. And I have since managed to pull myself back out and now live in Bulgaria with my 4 rescue dogs and a Land Rover on my homestead. So it all started in December 2022 when I had a freak accident. I was playing with one of my dogs. She punched me in the gut. I suffered a hernia. The hernia then led to an occlusion of the intestine. And by the time I actually made it to the hospital, they told me I had about 4 hours left to live and went straight into emergency surgery. So that came entirely out of the blue because I was just in the middle of launching another book, because at the time I was publishing multi-author books for women who want to tell their stories. And so everything was on hold. I spent a very, very quiet Christmas just recovering and not doing a lot apart from reflecting on life, because when you get that close to the edge, it starts giving you a lot of food for thought suddenly, and you see things in a different perspective. Then early January, I got the phone call that every daughter dreads who lives away from home. The neighbors called and said that my mum wasn't very well and they thought I should come to Germany immediately. I was living in the UK at the time. My mum was in Germany. So I didn't think much of it at the time because mum had been not well. She'd had COVID, but nobody thought nothing else of it either. Everybody was struggling with their health at the time. So we just thought she was a bit poorly. No red flags as such. And I said to the neighbors that I would be coming at the end of the month as usual, because I spent every January with my mum for my birthday. But they were very insistent, saying that they didn't think I should even wait that long. So basically the same night I got in my car and drove the 18 hours to mum, and was confronted with a very, very, very upsetting sight. Mum was clearly extremely ill, and I took her straight away to the hospital, where they ran some tests and gave us a diagnosis that it was terminal lung cancer with possibly 10 days left to live. I mean, literally, it was the end. And myself still been in recovery. I mean, I've driven over to Germany with my stitches still fresh. I was trying to juggle all that emotional turmoil or something so completely unexpected with my own health issues, not feeling very well. Husband at the time, and for some reason, yes, he was very cold, very disinterested, and just basically told me, well, your mom was a heavy smoker. What do you expect? It was about to happen. No compassion whatsoever. So I was a bit taken back, but again, I was in such an emotional state. I wasn't thinking very far or very much at the time. And then 2 days later, I get a message on Facebook Messenger from my husband. I won't be there when you get back. I'm leaving you. Goodbye. And just like that, literally with one text message, my entire life was over. So that night, I really don't know what actually happened. I don't even remember some of it. It was like a big void opened up, just like a big black hole that swallowed me. All I know is that the last few days then were spent lying to my mom, because the last thing I wanted her is to leave this world worrying about my marriage. And those were all worries that she really didn't need. So I just carried on, lied, saw mum over the Rainbow Bridge, sorted all of her affairs, and then on 1st of March, made my way back to the UK with mum's urn in the passenger seat of the car. And when I got home, I was met by an empty house. Our lovely marital home that was always full of laughter and full of joy was suddenly just an empty tomb, really. And that's where I crashed. And for almost 6 months, I was in a state of freeze. I didn't know what to do. I completely lost my identity. I couldn't work anymore, so my career crashed as well. And I basically just went from day to day, not knowing what comes next. I managed to get a grief counselor in the end. And with the help of that lady, I decided to finally make a move and go on the break. I literally booked a bushcraft camp in the middle of a private forest, and me and my dogs took off for a long weekend and just spent time in nature entirely on my own. And that's where I finally relaxed enough and came down enough. My nervous system started to actually ground enough to start thinking again. And that's where I made the decision that I wanted to change my life entirely. I decided there and then to sell up the house in the UK and move to my homestead in Bulgaria, a house that I'd bought 5 years earlier just for holiday purposes. So when I came back, I put the house on the market. I sold up everything. I cleared the place. And by the 1st of November, I packed my 4 dogs by then into my Land Rover and drove the 3,000 miles across Europe to Bulgaria. And that's where I started a brand new life. And now I live my childhood dream of homesteading each and every day.
No, was there a moment when when your basically your identity collapsed with the loss of all of these things that made you who you are? What was there a time that you felt that I'm never going to recover from this? I don't see how I can get out of this. Was there a time that you
Oh,
felt that
yes.
way? Mm-hmm.
Yes, most definitely. I must admit, for the very first and only time in my life, I came very close to the edge of thinking, what's the point even of continuing? And there were days when only my dogs really pulled me through, because the only reason I got up in the morning is because they needed something to eat. There was no other reason to get up anymore. Yes.
You know, the rescue dogs. Let's talk about them. What did your rescue dog teach you? Because they were the only ones there with you in all of this grief, this struggle, this heartbreak, this total
Absolutely.
nothingness. What did they teach you, about love and loyalty and trust? What did those dogs teach you?
Uh, those dogs taught me that at the end of the day, no matter what happens in life, where you are, whatever, it's only love that will actually pull you through. Like, for example, my very first rescue dog, Frunze, she actually came with me to Germany because I took her because I knew mum loved her. And Frunze was actually there at the hospital and said goodbye to mum. And just watching that dog, the dog actually knew exactly what was happening. She was there saying goodbye to mum. And when they wheeled mum away, I have never seen a dog so desperate. She was screaming because she couldn't get into the hospital after her, because we were only allowed to meet outside in the car park because animals were not allowed indoors. And this dog actually knew. And when my neighbor drove her away, she stayed in the empty apartment, my mom's apartment. And when I came back 18 hours later, after it was all done, this animal just took one single look at me and knew exactly what had happened. And all she did is, when I crashed and just went to bed, she didn't do a single thing. She just quietly got up on the bed and lay right close up to me, as close as she could, and didn't move a single inch until I finally then got up again. And I'm welling up even now thinking about it,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the compassion of that animal,
yes,
it
yes,
was
yes, yes.
unbelievable.
Yeah, wow, wow. You know, you talk about your music. You said that music played a pivotal role in your recovery. So how did your music and creative experience support your healing? How did it?
Uh, well, being a professional musician myself, and my ex always used to play in bands together, but that was the point. We were always playing together. So when he left, I suddenly felt that I was no longer able to play music, because I was genuinely convinced that I could only play with him by my side, because it was also intricately linked in my mind. And for a long time, I was too scared to pick up my bass guitar. Then in the end, I did, because I got bored one day and I thought, oh, you know what, just try it. And it felt okay, but then I realized that, I was stuck with an instrument that's actually not very much a an instrument that you play to sing to. So I decided to mess around with a little ukulele that was lying in the corner of the room, and suddenly found I actually took to that new little instrument like a duck out of water. And suddenly that sparked a new joy in me. I started playing, I started practicing. I was playing my favorite songs, covers of Creedence Clearwater, all that sort of thing. And the more confident I was getting on this new little instrument, the more an idea got in my head. I said, what if I could actually write a song? Because again, my ex was the one who wrote the songs for the band. I never did. So I was somehow convinced I couldn't write any songs. But then I joined a Facebook group of songwriters where everyone practiced and encouraged one another. And with the help of those people, I actually managed to write my first song. And that song is all about me and the dogs in a Land Rover driving through Europe. So I then thought, it actually would be a great idea to record this, because as a band, we'd always been in the recording studio. So I
Right.
made the really bold move and booked the recording studio that we used to go to as a band. And I told the engineer what had happened. And he said, come in, we'll sort something out. And with his help and a little bit of drum programming, I actually laid down the entire track myself, all the instruments, the singing. And it's now the title tune for my YouTube channel.
Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? So, you're building from all these ashes. Was there a time when, you're not just grieving for what you lost, but what you were before? Did you just, sometimes you grieve, but you're in the grieving now, but at the same time you are thinking about the things that you've lost. Does your mind go back to all of that intermittently?
It doesn't as much as it used to, but yes, there are still times, of course, when I think back to everything. But my perspective is starting to change the more I'm healing. In the beginning, it was just mourning all the things I had lost. The life with my ex, all the dreams that we had had together, mum, the fact that mum never did make it to my homestead in Bulgaria because we had planned for her to actually come and live here and help me run retreats. There were all these dreams that had died. And in the beginning, I was just ruminating over and over about all these things I had lost. But over time, as I'm starting to heal more and more, now when I'm looking back, it has changed. I'm now more looking back at my life before the marriage, and I'm starting to remember what I used to be like as a teenager, the dreams I had as a teenager. And I'm suddenly starting to realize that even though I am changing now, I am actually just reverting back to my original self. I am going back to those dreams I had when I was a kid. And so my reminiscing is changing over time. It's turning more into a tapping into my old dreams.
Yes, because sometimes we as women, we want to support our husbands and to make sure our family succeeds. So we put a lot of our dreams on hold for the good of the many, So that sometimes happens, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So your song that you have became your resurrection theme, your resurrection theme from ashes. The song
Exactly.
yeah.
It's become a symbol of that. Yes, I can do it. I can still play my music, and I've still got it. And it's going to be the theme tune to a YouTube series one day, because I have this dream of, again, grabbing the dogs, getting in the Land Rover, and just like overlanding it across Europe and filming all of it.
That's a great dream. If you can conceive it, you probably, normally when you can conceive things, you can normally do it. So you've conceived it in your mind already. So it's probably done.
Mm-hmm.
So, you support your woman over 50, your reinvention and your truth and your power. What myth, based on your experience, what myth about aging women would you want to dismantle? What myth about aging women over 50 that you want to dismantle?
The myth I really want to dismantle is that women over 50 are too old to still do anything. I want to dismantle this image of women just dressed in these drab old clothes, going to the church bake on a Sunday, and basically sitting at home doing the knitting in the evening. This typical granny image that everyone has got of women over 50. I want to dismantle that, because that's not true. Life starts at 50 and you can do so much. I admire so many women who are active in older life. I mean, I saw recently a lady at 102, she's the oldest marathon runner, for example, or you hear of women in their 80s and 90s still going to university and finally getting that degree just because. So
because
that's exactly because they want to. So that's the main myth I want to dispel, that you are not too old and life isn't over.
So, what does freedom look like to you now? What does freedom look like to you?
To me, freedom means being able to do what I want every single day and not to have apologized for it or make any compromises.
Some of your clients, sometimes even myself, uh, you want to help people, but at the same time, you want to help them, but the only thing that can free them is when they face the truth of whatever is happening to them. Have you come across an occasion that you can share with us where you had a client and you had to force the person to face the truth about whatever they were going through?
Yes, when I was still working with authors and doing the book publishing, it has happened several times because when you actually write your story in a book, it's surprisingly scary. Some women get really, really upset when they actually start to write their story because all these fears bubble up. And I have had to sit down with several of my authors and have a really good talk, basically. So, look, having these fears is normal because what you're writing may upset other people. It may even be that your own family doesn't like what you're writing. So there are all these valid fears. But if you want to do what you've always dreamt of doing, being an author, you need to literally work through that and decide that your dream is more important and sit down, do it, and make the decision to actually submit your chapter, speak your truth, and then hold your head up high and say, this is me, this is my truth. And, I have spoken. And you need to learn that not everybody will be happy with your decisions.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. So tell our listeners what is it like living off the grid? Living off the grid and, compared to conventional living. Can you give us an idea?
Yeah, but to me, it's a dream come true because I've always wanted to homestead since early childhood. But in practical terms, it means that instead of just using the power out of the sockets in your wall, I have power packs, I have solar panels, and that makes you very conscious about things like your energy consumption. And also when you're working in the grounds and you're having to think about, okay, this year I want to plant potatoes, tomatoes, and you have to get everything just right and prepare the ground and put up trellises. There's a lot of thought involved. So the things I have learned already is that being completely food independent and actually growing your own food is very, very hard, but it's ultimately rewarding because you actually know what you're putting inside your body.
Absolutely.
But it also gets you very, very close to nature. I feel the closest to Mother Nature I have ever been. Just getting your hands in the soil and grounding every single day. It's a wonderful feeling. And at the same time, these practicalities like having to juggle your power consumption makes you actually very aware of how many resources we are using on this planet and how you can actually practically reduce that consumption without having to suffer too many of these setbacks or cutbacks, really. Like, I can live perfectly comfortably with just 3 power packs. I don't actually need to be on the grid at all.
So do you it sounds like you do food items like vegetables and stuff. Do you go like chickens or what else do you rear? Animals? Any animals?
Animals not yet. They
Oh,
are
okay.
they are they are on the schedule, but for now I'm living here by myself and the place is so big that realistically, I will need a second person living here, because I am also looking for women to create a small community on this land, because I've got half a hectare here, and for one single person, it's just too much. So for now, I am focusing on growing the food because the grounds all still need preparing a lot. There is a lot of work to do, but the animals are definitely on the agenda. They will come sometime next year.
But you use tractors and stuff and things like that. I mean, you use modern technology
to some degree. I use petrol streamers, but I also use things like scythes and sickles and hand tools.
Oh, that's okay.
I do a combination of all, really, because again, my focus in everything I do is on reducing my footprint as much as I can.
Okay, I was just wondering. And then the surplus, do you sell? Do you give it away? Because sometimes you have surpluses only your own. So what you do with the surplus?
For now, I am growing just enough for myself. So whatever is too much in the summer, I can and then eat it in the winter.
Oh, you can stuff. Okay, that's good. Yeah, yeah. You know, let's talk about loss, love, and becoming. You know, what did the divorce teach you and the challenge to understand the partnership and your own identity? What did it teach you?
And the divorce actually taught me that in hindsight, I was way too codependent on my partner. And what I perceived as love, I think, was more clinginess, but that was on both parts. Now, I think, looking back, I mean, when you're in it, you never see it. But looking back, I can see where it all went wrong now. And I think it taught me mostly that in order to have a healthy relationship, you got to give each other a lot of space, and you got to be able to let the other person pursue their own dreams and their own goals without constantly holding them back and without constantly saying to them, oh, you can't do this because what about me? Which is what tends to happen a lot when you're too codependent on one another.
Did you get married like young, very young? You got married very young, eh?
Yes, we were teenage sweethearts. We got married at 19, and then it lasted for 31 years. Many of those years were very good, but towards the end, no, not so much, really.
So we could fairly say that a lot of your dreams was held back also, because you're sort of living your dreams now at your age that you probably should have lived at 19, 20. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. There are a lot of things I wanted to do that I put on ice because, well, we had a joint dream at least of being musicians. That kind of helped, but looking back, it also pushed everything else out of focus.
So what would you say? What would you say in the relationship? What are the old things that have died, but there's still some things that still survive? Is there any part of your old self that died, but there's some parts that still exist?
A part of my old self that died, I think, is the blue-eyed romantic, because I was just so naive and romantic, and I thought love was all about red roses and Valentine's Day and Cupid and all that stuff. I think that part has most definitely died, and I've become a more realistic, down-to-earth version of myself, even though I never wanted to be. But I just see things from a more sort of practical perspective. I try not to be cynical, but I do catch myself sometimes, thinking, but that again, even that is a learning curve, because I'm trying not to beat myself up for what I used to be. I'm trying to forgive myself unapologetically for all of these bits, because it was part of me. It was part of the learning process. And without going through all of that and then experiencing the breakup, I wouldn't know what I know today.
And you won't be in a position to help women who go through the same thing. You didn't get the
Exactly.
support that you can now give to somebody else who's going through that
Mhm.
same that journey. Yeah, yeah. So what message would you like to give women who are going through your particular situation, or you know, or can draw a parallel from your situation? What would you like to tell them today?
My advice is to be very, very gentle on yourself, to try not to judge yourself, not to try to judge your old self. And I know it's very difficult, but to somehow get the courage up, even if it means having to ask someone to can trust, to get the courage up to take that very, very first step towards a new life. Because when you are in that situation, you are caught in the freeze response. You know, we all get the fight, flight, or freeze response.
Right.
And most of us are stuck in the freeze, like I was, just unable to do anything. You know in your head that you should be doing things. And then you wake up in the morning, you say, this is the day. And by breakfast, you're already too tired and you just watch Netflix. So to get over that state of mind, over this freeze response, do something to get to take that first step. And like in my case, I went bushcrafting for 3 nights. So it's something slightly out of my comfort zone. And I think that's the trick. If you want to get moving, decide to do something, even if something very small, that's not totally within your comfort zone.
Then you start to build up your courage. The little steps, little baby steps of, courage building until you get to the,
Exactly.
yeah, yes, yes, yes. Well, we could go on for hours talking. Your story is one of, really remarkable, testament of transformation. So if Silke's story stirs something in you, you can share the episode. And also, Silke, please tell our listeners how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, sure. So if you want to get in touch and explore working with me, if you need help, you can email me at silke@innerhippie.net. And you can also go to my website, which is silkeharvey.com. You can also get hold of me on Facebook and YouTube, on both just under my name, Silke Harvey.
Okay, and then we put those in our notes in the podcast for persons who want to get in touch with you. So, if you know someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to start over. It's never too late to start over. Your next chapter doesn't need permission. It just needs you. So thank you,
Exactly.
Silke. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure.